Material left, like I said, 2 sections. I'm going to break down some of the dark occult symbolism in National Reconnaissance Office, or NRO, launch mission patches. And I think after I show you these patches, you'll agree that there are forces at work in government and in these intelligence offices that most certainly have a bizarre religion and a bizarre sense of what symbolism they find attractive, let's say. So again, the NRO is the office that has the least amount of employees working for them officially and the largest intelligence budget allocated to that department.
As also stated earlier, John Whitesides Parsons, chemist and rocket engineer extraordinaire, was the actual creator of the Caltech lab eventually called JPL, or, among insiders, Jack Parsons Lab. And while there is very little official biographical information to be found on him in the general literature, it is a curious fact that most of his papers and books are still classified by the Department of Defense. One thing that is known, at least within the planetary science community, is that Parsons has been officially immortalized by the International Astronomical Union by having a crater named for him on the moon. It is therefore extremely puzzling that the rest of Parsons' life, in comparison to far more obscure space scientists and engineers, is relatively unknown, even among avid JPL enthusiasts. Perhaps the reason for this paucity of information has something, perhaps a lot, to do with certain aspects of Parsons' private life that most at NASA and JPL, actually in the know, might rather be forgotten. Because one striking aspect of Parsons' private life that has been well documented outside of official governmental sources and publications is his curious association with an individual known as Aleister Crowley. Given Crowley's overwhelming and intensely controversial interests, the demonstrable importance of Crowley in Jack Parsons' private and professional life, stay tuned, and an inexplicable Crowleyan pattern that has recently emerged in all JPL missions, one feels compelled to ask at this late date, who was Aleister Crowley? And what was his heretofore unseen but apparently highly influential role in the founding and evolution of this critical national space facility called JPL?
I could be incorrect about that. Now, you see the all-seeing eye in the pyramid, okay? And then the NRO patch designation, the mission designation. Now, we saw what the all-seeing eye represented. It represents God, divinity, okay? The light of the Creator. And, of course, the pyramid, the stone representing the block to that light. Now, what makes this satanic is the fact that the rocket carrying the payload, or the mission satellite, is getting ready to fly over the top of the all-seeing eye in its trajectory. Now that in and of itself would not be so sinister, but what makes it sinister is the Latin term supra-summus. I know that's a little bit difficult to see on this screen. Hopefully people can see that. It's S-U-P-R-A-S-U-M-M-U-S, supra-summus. In Latin that means, get ready for this, higher than the most high.
33 degrees north latitude.
Okay.
Strange but true, Roswell, the UFO crash in 1947, Mount Palomar, the largest post-war observatory, Rancho Santa Fe, Heaven's Gate, White Sands, the first A-bomb test, Nagasaki, Japan, the second A-bomb dropped, and Baghdad, Iraq, highlight, of course, of the Gulf War, and Phoenix, Arizona, the Phoenix Lights moving across the city at 19.5 degrees, and Dallas, site of the Kennedy assassination, are all at 33
Which means
degrees.
In Latin, first and important from the fall is the best that I can translate that. Or first and grave, or heavy, or important from the fall. Now, what that means is obviously very occulted. I couldn't tell you what this mission is ultimately about, but clearly there's blatant satanic symbolism in it, and the earth is in shadow. And Occultus could also mean sunset. So you see the sun being obscured. If you look at that,
Crowley claims that his second otherworldly encounter, which resulted in an even more profound influence on his work in magic, occurred at Montauk, Long Island in New York in 1918. This entity introduced himself as Lamb, which Crowley was quick to point out meant pathmaker, pathfinder in the Tibetan language. It is from this word that Lam-as of Tibet are so called. The lamb was also the ancient symbol for Ares, Mars, as well as the resurrected god, Tammuz, Osiris, Christ, etc. Rising from the ashes, Crowley drew an effigy of lamb, which eerily represents the popular modern image of an alien, some half a century later.
Here's one that is a clear reference to dark occultists not wanting anybody to get involved in their business. It's a blatant warning or threat. And this is special projects of the NRO with a dragon coming out of the clouds shooting lightning bolts down. You'll see a repeated imagery of dragons, lightning bolts pointed at or down at the earth. And the Latin insignia at the top says, Procul este profani, which means away with the profane. The profane are not welcome here, in other words. Okay? Away with the profane.
In the 1940s, before Crowley's death, Parsons met up with another well-known character in Los Angeles, L. Ron Hubbard. I mean, he had a lot of interesting friends, didn't he? The infamous founder of the Church of Scientology. Parsons and Hubbard quickly became firm friends. And the two of them then set off on self-proclaimed magical rituals of enormous significance, trying to conjure up spirits and summon the gods alchemically, much to the dismay of Crowley, who was suspicious not only of their motives, but their methodology. Remember, he liked talking to the guys directly. Some of these ritual practices were sexual in nature and performed at the pre-construction site of the Great Palomar Observatory, remember, at 33 degrees north, just south of here, at they believed to be a great sexual center of the earth. Palomar was founded and managed by Caltech, which was also co-founded by none other than Jack Parsons, and in Spanish, Palomar also means the house to which a pigeon comes home. During the course of Parsons' friendship with Hubbard, Parsons naively imparted a vast amount of Crowleyan knowledge to Hubbard. Then Hubbard went on to steal Parsons' wife, Marjorie Cameron, and also his money through a phony business venture. Hubbard later claimed to be the successor to Crowley, the rightful successor, the great beast, but then also claimed at the same time to be working for naval intelligence in order, quote, to spy on these dangerous magicians within our very institutions. Gosh, I wonder what he could be talking about.
Here's more. So this section is all about dragons. You know, a dragon is a symbol of power, authority, knowledge, hidden knowledge, especially. And this one, you have the dragon holding the entire planet, surrounding the entire planet. You know, as if he's either, you know, it's his child or perhaps he's getting ready to eat it. But it says, omnis vestri substructio est servus ad nobis. And this is a very broken Latin phrase. It's not really structured properly in Latin deliberately. I'll tell you what it means in a moment, but I just want to point out there's that 5 and 1 star configuration that I talked about that some people have suggested represents Area 51 or 51. Again, May Day is a big occult satanic holiday known as Walpurgisnacht. All right, Walpurgisnacht or Beltane. It means bell's wheel, the beginning of the, or the midpoint of the spring season, I should say, where sacrifice in the form of blood sacrifice was traditionally offered toward the sun and the earth in order to ensure bountiful spring growth,
with
so
the
there
wordless
would be a
eon.
bountiful harvest.
In the book of Antichrist, Parsons wrote describing the Black Pilgrimage, which he ostensibly took in this working, quote, "Babylon called on me again, and I began the last work, the work of the wand. And I worked for 17 days until Babylon called me in a dream in an astral working. Then I reconstructed the temple and began the Black Pilgrimage as she instructed. And I went into the sunset with her sign, and into the night past accursed and desolate places and cyclopean ruins." These are huge structures. "And so came at last to the city of Chorazin. And there a great tower of black basalt was raised, that was part of a castle, whose further battlements wheeled over the gulf of stars. And upon the tower was this sign," which of course is the sign of hyperdimensional physics, and the exact place on Mars where Crowley's successors at JPL have put Pathfinder down.
Here's some blatant alien symbolism, and I would say demonic symbolism. I've broken down in my occult mockery presentation how the Air Force logo is actually a demon's face. I mean, if you look at it, you know, the eyes, you have the brows, the horns going up, the nose coming down, and then the mouth looking very sinister. You know, I could see it very clearly. I don't know how people who revere the symbol cannot see that that's a demon's face. And if I had to make a best guesstimate, that's the demon known as Chort. In every depiction I've ever seen of Chort portrayed, that's his face. You know, I could be wrong about that, but it's certainly...
So alchemy had three goals to accomplish before the total decay of matter, the total breakdown we're witnessing, was accomplished. And these are: 1, the creation and destruction of primordial matter; 2, the killing of the divine king; and 3rd, the bringing of prima materia to prima terra. Since this cycle of time was first reborn, these were the goals of the Gnostic, Rosicrucian, Masonic, Hermetic elite. An elite not confined to hereditarily insane Roderick Usher-type mansions in New England, but as real and corporeal as the Skull and Bones organization at Yale University, to which George Bush is a charter member. The Bohemian Grove here in California. Dr. John Whiteside Parsons' Ordo Templi Orientis, also of California. Dr. Parsons, by the way, being of Caltech. General Albert Pike's Scottish and Palladian rites of Freemasonry in the American South, and a host of lesser imitators, all these cults having the highest possible offices, connections, and old boy networks. The creation and destruction of primordial matter was accomplished at the Kabbalistic White Head, at White Sands, New Mexico, at the Trinity site, at the beginning of the ancient road known as the Jornada del Muerto, or Journey of Death, when the first atomic bomb was exploded. That's the creation and destruction of primordial matter in alchemy. The killing of the divine king was ritualistically accomplished on the 33rd degree of parallel latitude, near the Trinity River and the Triple Underpass, on a street known to the people as Bloody Elm Street, in an area known as Dealey Plaza, the site of the first Masonic temple in Dallas, with the shattering of the head of the King of Camelot, President John Fitzgerald Kennedy. And the bringing of prima materia to prima terra was accomplished in 1969 with the Apollo flight to the moon, and the returning to Earth of moon rocks, which have gone on to be used in various rituals of no mean significance. By the way, the Phoenix landing module was jettisoned into the sun in a kind of alchemical marriage of sun and moon. Freemason and astronaut Lieutenant Colonel Edwin A. Buzz Aldrin brought with him to the moon the two-headed eagle flag of the Knights Templar, which is now on display at the Masonic Lodge in Washington, D.C.